This Monday afternoon. It's 3 o'clock, and we're going to have a pretty fun show today. We're talking about TV, what to stream. We're also going to talk about some great music happening here in Rhode Island, and we're going to get you back on track for those running goals in 2018. So let's kick off the show by saying hello and welcome to Managing Editor Alex Zalben. He is with Decider.com. Alex, hello, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I love talking about TV. I love talking about streaming shows, and always a pleasure to be speaking with you because you always know what's up and what's happening.
Oh boy, that's a lot of pressure, Molly.
It is a lot of pressure, but it's good pressure, right? All right, so we're
Exactly.
going to start off by talking about something major that happened last night. And so I want to give a spoiler alert. Big, if you need to do this, now's a good time to do it, Alex.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. Major spoiler alert to Walking Dead fans. So something big happened last night. Talk about what happened on Walking Dead and then really the implications of this.
Yeah, sure. So one of the original characters, one of the few remaining original characters at this point, before last night's episode, there were only four characters that had survived for 8 seasons. Now there's three. Chandler Riggs, who plays Carl, has left the show. It wasn't, we knew this was coming. We found out that he got bit by a zombie at the mid-season finale back in December. But they had a whole episode devoted to it last night where he said goodbye to his dad. He said goodbye to his de facto mom, Michonne, who's played by Black Panther's Danae Guerrera. There was a couple of other things that went down in the episode, but that was the big focus. And it was surprisingly emotional. There's been a lot of gunplay, a lot of violence over the past half a season. But this really delved down into the characters. And the point of it was to have Carl, who is this character, the main character, Rick's son, really tried to get a sense of hope in him, surprisingly, given the circumstances and given the death. Basically saying, listen, don't let my death be in vain. I have this vision of the future where we're all living in peace and we make the world better. Fight for my vision, Dad. So it actually ended up being really emotionally affecting and a good episode, and it's going to propel the series through the next half season.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, especially for a show that is, I mean, there's only so much you can do, and I think there's been some criticism about that, where how long is this really going to last, and then they have the spin-off, and so being able to take something and make it meaningful and then have fans continue to watch, I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of prep for this episode, honestly, just because I just started here at the job of the Decider, and we were putting together a lot of things to get ready for the episode. And I looked back, and I was actually surprised how many episodes have been really excellent of The Walking Dead. I wouldn't say it gets an unfair rap, because there's a lot of episodes that have been not so good. But there's a lot of really wonderful things that do happen on the show sometimes. And to your point, this was one of those episodes where they really brought it out and really pushed hard on the characters. And we'll see what happens, but I'm very excited to see what's going to happen over the next half a season.
So for fans, super fans, I think it's, what do you think super fans will take away from this? Are they going to be disappointed because they lost one of the originals, or do you think they did such a good job that they'll be okay with the takeaway?
I think they'll be okay. There are people who really love Chandler Riggs, and clearly he's been there since the beginning. He started when he was 10 years old, so it's kind of amazing to have watched him grow up on screen for the past 8 years. But he went out on a really high note. He did an incredible job with acting, and we actually have a piece that should be going up soon on Decider where I wrapped up all the things, all the projects that he's working on. So we're not totally done with him yet, and there's a little bit of a guess that I have that we may actually not be totally done with him on The Walking Dead either, that we may see a little bit of Carl before the season is over.
Okay, that's good. I think we'll leave it at that. So hopefully the spoiler alert isn't too much for you, and hopefully gave you a little bit of a preview of what's to come next. All right, let's talk a little bit about, the reason why I wanted to chat with you is because, one, I love the Olympics, but the Olympics are over. So because we had this major event, it's like all these networks really just took a hiatus from their regular programming, and they just put their regular programming on a back burner and said, well, the Olympics are on, let's just take a break. So now that the Olympics are over, we're really starting to see a pickup of either regular fall programming return or new programming kicking back up into gear. So we really wanted to talk to you about what's coming up, what's coming out on regular network shows, on streaming services, whether something's returning or new stuff is coming back up. So wanted to get in touch with you and find out what's worth our time and when things are going to be hitting the airwaves or the streaming services.
Sure. There is a lot of stuff coming up. I was actually looking at my DVR schedule last night, and it was pretty much empty before this for the past couple of weeks. And now suddenly it's like conflict, resolve this conflict. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of new shows, actually, as you mentioned, that are worth your time. One of my favorite new shows is premiering tonight at 10 p.m. on NBC. It's called Good Girls. It stars Christina Hendricks, who you probably know from Mad Men, Mae Whitman, who you might know from Parenthood and a million other things, and Retta, who you probably know best from Parks and Rec. And the way people are pitching it is like Breaking Bad, but with women, and that's kind of fair, but it's much funnier and weirder and more heartfelt in a specific way. Basically, they are down on their luck. They need a little bit of money, so they decide to rob the grocery store that Mae Whitman's character works at, and things spiral out of control from there. I've seen the first couple of episodes, and it's well worth your time. There's parts, particularly Retta is wonderful, and she did some stuff in the pilot and the second episode that really brought tears to my eyes. It's great. It jumps between tones a lot, but it earns it, and it's very good. Another show that's on tonight, right before that on the CW, iZombie is back. If you don't watch Walking Dead, you could probably check this out anyway. It's a zombie show, but a little funnier and a little quirkier. It changes dramatically this season, is what I'll say. It's basically been about a zombie, an intelligent zombie who teams up with cops to solve mysteries. But what happened at the end of the last season is the rest of the world found out that zombies are real and living in Seattle. So again, I've seen the first couple of episodes of the season. It's very different from what it was before. But this is a great time to jump on board because it's a new world that's dealing with not a zombie invasion, but zombies who are kind of just like you and me, except they crave brains. So it's a different sort of show, but it's still retained the humor and it's retained a lot of the heart and the characters. So if you're looking for something new, you can definitely check that out, even if you haven't seen it before. And this is a very busy night for TV, I got to tell you. Unreal is back on Lifetime at 10 p.m. This is a show, it started out from one of the producers of The Bachelor. She's never specifically acknowledged it this way, but it is basically a slightly fictionalized version of what happens behind the scenes on The Bachelor. And it's as horrifying as you'd imagine it would be. The first season was fantastic. The second season was not so great, but I haven't had a chance to watch the episodes yet, but I've talked to a couple of folks here at Decider who have, and they say that it's right back on pace. So if you're a fan of The Bachelor or Bachelorette and want to find out what it's really like, this is a great show to check out. Looking a little further down the week, because that's already a lot of stuff for tonight. On Wednesday, premiering on Hulu is The Looming Tower, which is a mini-series. It talks about the days leading up to 9/11 and Osama bin Laden's plans, which is as serious and as tense as you'd imagine it be, but it stars Alec Baldwin and Peter Sarsgaard and Michael Stolberg and Bill Camp, who you might recognize from The Night Of, and Jeff Daniels. And I've talked to a couple of my writers here, and it's supposed to be great. So I really recommend it. Hulu has been on a high since The Handmaid's Tale, so this is a good time to kind of sign up for a subscription if you don't have one already. And then on Thursday, another busy night, Atlanta, Donald Glover's comedy is back on FX at 10 p.m. The second season is phenomenal. Have you ever watched Atlanta?
I have not yet, and it's on my list that I need to jump into it. Yeah.
It's a little hard to describe, other than it's kind of a comedy and kind of not, but it's very much about the city of Atlanta as much as it is about the characters. Season 2 is called Atlanta Robin season, and doesn't so much have a plot as things happen, and you kind of just have to check it out to see what it's all about, but it's pretty brilliant and wonderful. I was almost say on the other end of the spectrum, but I actually love this show. Gotham also returns at 8 p.m. on Fox. This is Fox's young Batman tale, and I think they're finally getting to it. They're teasing that he finally might actually become Batman this season, but it's ridiculous and over the top, and the villains are insane, and it's super violent, but in a very cartoony way. So if you're looking for a superhero show that is not exactly a superhero show so much as just bananas insane, you can definitely check that out.
I feel like
Uh,
this year Gotham, this season's a little bit better than last season. I think it got kind of off track last season, but it's just one of those fun
mhm.
things to watch.
Yeah, it's very over the top and
Yeah.
it's very cartoony, but purposely so. I think at a certain point they're going for a bunch of different things and they figured out, all right, let's just kind of go for 60s Batman mixed with Danny Elfman Batman,
Yeah.
not Danny Elfman, Tim Burton Batman, and it's great. Looking a little further down the pike, March 2nd, Once Upon a Time is going to be back on ABC for its last couple of episodes. So if you've been a fan of the series, this is your chance to say goodbye to it. I'm hoping they get their happy ending. We'll see what happens. And then there's a bunch of other premieres coming up next week, March 7th. Heathers is coming up on the Paramount Network. This is a very different take on the movie that switches the genders and a bunch of other things. Also, the same day, Life Sentence is premiering on the CW. This is Lucy Hale from Pretty Little Liars in a very different role. She plays a girl who has had cancer as far as she knows for an entire life and suddenly finds out she's cured. And then what does she do with the rest of her life? What happens? Who knows? And then March 8th, the two most anticipated releases, and then I'll let you stop talking for a second. Champions, a comedy with some of the team from Workaholics, is premiering. And then Jessica Jones, season 2, is premiering on Netflix. This is Marvel's superhero series. People loved the first season. So the second season is highly anticipated. Kristen Ritter is great in the role of a noir detective who drinks too much and fights too much and is dealing with a lot of issues of her own. So we'll just have to see if that second season matches up to the first one.
So what are we looking at for the next couple weeks? I mean, we still have these networks that are, that are putting out shows and that kind of thing, but we're really looking at what I've seen is these streaming networks just building up such incredible programming. We're looking at Amazon, we're looking at Netflix, we're looking at Hulu with just these champion programming. What's it like for you guys when you're discussing these shows, when you're talking about these streaming services?
Well, like you said, things have been developing crazily over the past year. I think about 2 or 3 years ago, John Landgraf, who is the head of FX Networks, he's been very into breaking down stats for TV journalists in particular. And he pioneered the idea of peak TV, the term peak TV. That was 2 or 3 years ago when he said that, and he coined the term peak TV. And then we've only added hundreds of more shows as we've gone. Speaking as a TV journalist, it is terrifying to come into work sometimes every day. We're not having anybody dying on our operating table or anything like that. But just to think, oh my God, there are 10 new shows premiering tonight. There's 20 shows premiering this week. How do we balance all of that? How do you watch all of that? And not to get too pluggy, but that's part of the reason that I'm excited to be here at Decider is that's what the site is all about. It's very focused on streaming, particularly Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon shows, but a lot of the other services as well, and breaks down for you what is actually worth your precious time. But like you said, there's a lot of it out there. One of the nice things is there's something for everybody. There's a show on Netflix that I had never heard of before I started my job here called Casa de Papel, which is a Spanish show. It's called Money Heist here in the United States. And it's huge. It's something that I don't think I've really heard anybody talk about in common conversation, but people are very excited about it internationally. They've started to pick it up here in the United States. And that's the sort of thing that you would never have found 5 years ago without a streaming service. So I think that's kind of wonderful. It's a good problem to have too much TV to watch,
Which is exactly why I like talking to you, figuring out what is worth our time, because we don't always have time, but when we do, we don't want to be flipping through the channels or scrolling through something going, I don't know what's worth it. And then, you spend 20 minutes on something, you're like, this isn't good. But does it get good? I don't know what's worth it.
Yeah.
So we want to congratulate you. You do have a new position, managing editor at Decider.com, and that's what's cool. And you kind of talked about it a little bit, helping people really dive into what is worth your time on these different types of shows and that kind of thing. So congratulations to you. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing there.
So as I mentioned, Decider is very focused on streaming services, but it's also broadcast as well. Like we talked about at the beginning, we've been doing a lot of coverage of Walking Dead. We had a review of Good Girls, which is on NBC, go up earlier today. So it's more about there's a lot of great writers on the staff who are writing features about these things. We're writing reviews of these things. There's also a ton of news constantly coming in just about all things TV and celebrities related to TV. But for the most part, it is what the name of the site is. It's trying to help you decide, beyond the reviews and the features and everything else, which try to push people in the right directions and give you an honest appraisal of what is good and what is not. One of my favorite features of the site is about halfway down the homepage, there's a thing called What to Watch. And it actually takes you to a separate page where you have curated editorial picks for what to watch on any given night to go up every single night of the week. They can vary from individual episodes of television to series to movies that are available on streaming. And you can read a little blurb or so about what each editor in their particular pick really likes about something, as well as you can sort them by type of show, you can sort them by streaming service, you can sort them by genre, things like that. So to your point, it's actually really, really helpful rather than just going, I go into Netflix and I'm just clicking around randomly for half an hour. Exactly, just like that. So go to the page, go to the What to Watch page, and it'll help direct you on an almost daily basis.
I know last time I talked with you, you broke it down and said The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I said, all right, I've got a couple hours. This is what I'm doing. I watched it, and it was definitely worth my time, and I think it was worth the Academy's time as well because it racked up quite a few awards as well.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, so the Oscars are coming up this weekend. Talk to me just a little bit about, do we have access to watch any of these films, and are any of these films worth spending time getting caught up of? Can we catch them on any streaming services?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of that. So Amazon Prime, actually, we just posted an article about this on the site, is posting a ton of the nominees, particularly the Best Picture nominees. So you should be able to rent those pretty cheaply over the course of the next week. And they're all pretty good. That's one of the things that's surprising about this year's Oscars, I think, is it's really a wide open race because most of the Best Picture nominees and most of the acting nominees are really solid. Usually you have a couple of nominees that you think, I don't know why that's in there.
Yeah,
and certainly
I don't get it.
yeah, there's been a lot of debate, particularly about Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, I would say, because of some questionable choices in the script. But other than that, you have Get Out, that is genre-defying. You have Shape of Water, same thing. Lady Bird is one of my favorite movies of the year, and it's absolutely wonderful, and all the performances are great. And many more that are just really good. I think I'd have to check this for you. I'd have to look into it a little more because I don't have all of the information at my fingertips. But I believe you can stream a couple of them on Netflix right now, but they should all be, at the very least, on Amazon Prime for rental.
That's awesome. I think it's worth getting caught up on, and we have, just under a week to do it, so why not?
Exactly. You have nothing better to do with your time. You don't have 300 TV shows to watch.
Exactly. And while looking at things on my phone and working on my computer all at the same time, right?
Exactly. And jobs, of course. Also your job, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
Right.
That thing. Well, Alex, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you today. Hopefully we can check in a little bit and find out some more shows that are worth our time to watch, because there are endless, right? And I'm sure a couple more will be popping up within the meantime, right? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us today, Alex. I really appreciate it. It's been a blast. Alex Zalben, managing editor at Decider.com. We are going to take a quick break. Looks like just in time. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a quick break as we get caught up here with our next guest on Go Local Live.